So, in practical terms, what do I do when I feel I need mutual supervision? I feel I need this particularly during the summer when at Pilgrims, which is the school I work for, we have a lot of people coming on training courses, and the work is extremely intensive. And at that point, yes, I get strongly involved with some of my participants, and I need supervision. So at that point, I seek out somebody in the team who's willing to do that. And we set aside, because the courses are very intensive, 2-week courses, we do it every day. We do it for half an hour a day. The place we choose to do it is important. It ought to be away from thoroughfares and away from places where other people can hijack you and lasso you and talk to you and generally invade your space. You need to have absolute confidentiality. Nothing that happens in the supervision should leak upwards, and nothing should leak sideways into staff room gossip. If he starts doing that, it's a mess. And that confidentiality is quite hard to be sure about. So it's pretty important that you trust the contract of confidentiality. It should be non-hierarchical. The two people should be on an equal footing. I used to think in terms of choice of person, I used to go for people whom I thought were particularly psychologically savvy, who knew a lot about people. And then circumstances sometimes forced me to choose someone whom I didn't think was ideal. And I found it still worked. There was a case of a very intensive train-the-trainer course the British Council run in a place called Kroměříž in Czech Republic. And the only person available was a young 25-year-old British Council person whom I wouldn't have chosen typically as a good supervisor for me. But she was marvelous, and she grew into the role. So I think that from her side, too, it was quite enriching. At the end of the course, I was highly emotional, and she held it. Which is, I mean, big thanks to her for having managed that. It should be totally mutual, and that means that the time, if it's half an hour, should be divided absolutely rigidly between you, so that you know what time frame you're working within. And it's also, I think, important to notice that this is not mentoring. In a mentoring scheme, one person goes and visits the other's class. In this kind of mutual supervision, that does not happen. And you might say, why? Isn't it reasonable to visit another person's class and see what they actually do? And the answer is that if you go to somebody else's class, you get a gestalt of that class in your head. You as a professional, however hard you try not to judge, will make some quiet judgments about what was good and bad. But the teacher herself will only be able to change from within her own mapping of that class, not from your marvelous overview of it. Change will only happen from the way she saw and felt and heard that class. So the fact that you haven't seen the class and don't know the students she's teaching is actually a plus, because it means she can be much, much cleaner of her own totally natural professional judgments. Yeah? In other words, all she's got to work on in terms of supervision is the text that you bring about the class. It's your legend, your myth, your subjective impression of your class. Because it's only from within that you're going to change, if change is needed.